Somebody wrote something down about 2,400 years ago. And I need you to hear it before I tell you who wrote it or when, because the moment I give you that context, your brain is going to file it under ancient history and stop actually listening. So just hear the description first. A place that exists everywhere at once, not a building, not a city, not a physical location of any kind. A space where all human knowledge lives together, where anyone from anywhere can reach in and retrieve an idea, where thoughts travel between minds without a messenger, without a letter, without a ship crossing the sea. That's the description, word for word, as close as translation allows. Now, who do you think wrote that? Because it wasn't a tech founder, it wasn't a DARPA engineer. It wasn't anyone who had ever seen a computer, a telegraph, or an electrical current of any kind. It was a man who wrote on papyrus, who debated in sandals, who lived in a city where the fastest way to send a message was to hand it to someone on a horse. His name was Plato, and what he was describing, whether he fully understood it or not, was the internet. Now, before you go anywhere, this is not one of those ancient aliens built the pyramids situations. This is something stranger than that, and honestly, more unsettling. What I'm going to show you is that the deepest conceptual architecture of our most advanced technology was already understood by people who had none of the tools to build it. And the evidence has been sitting in plain sight for centuries. In books taught in universities, in texts philosophers have argued over for 2,000 years. Nobody hid this, nobody locked it away, we just never looked at it from this particular angle. So let's look. Athens, around 380 BC. A man in his late 40s is running a school in a grove of olive trees just outside the city. The school is called the Academy, and yes, that is exactly where we get the word. The man is Plato, and he is completely consumed by a question that sounds simple but turns out to be maybe the hardest question in all of philosophy. Where do ideas come from? When you think of a perfect circle, and you can, right now, you know exactly what one is. You have never actually seen one. Every circle ever drawn by human hands is imperfect at the microscopic level. And yet, the concept of a perfect circle exists in your mind with total clarity. You can reason about it. You can do mathematics with it. So where is it? Where does the perfect circle actually live? Plato's answer was so radical that people have been arguing about it ever since. He said, perfect things do not exist in the physical world. They exist somewhere else. A separate realm, not located in any particular place, not owned by any particular person. A realm that every human mind has access to, not through the senses, but through reason. He called the inhabitants of this realm the forms, and he said the physical world is just a shadow, a rough copy, a low-resolution version of something that lives in that shared space. Now stop for a second and think about that as an engineer, not as a philosophy student. The internet is not located anywhere. There is no single building where the internet lives. It is distributed across millions of servers, cables, satellites, and devices. When you access a piece of information on it, you are accessing something that exists independently of your device. The file, the idea, the page, it lives in a shared space that any connected mind can reach. You do not own it, you access it. Plato called his shared space the realm of forms. We call ours the cloud. The geometry is identical. But here is where it gets more specific. Plato did not just describe a passive library sitting somewhere waiting to be found. He described the process of connecting to it. He said that when a human mind truly understands something, not just memorizes it, but genuinely grasps it, what is actually happening is that the mind is making contact with the form. It is reaching into the shared realm and pulling something back. He called this process anamnesis, which translates roughly as remembering, not learning, remembering. As if the knowledge was always there, already uploaded, and education is just the process of teaching your mind to find the signal. Your phone does not store most of what it shows you. It connects, retrieves, renders. The content lives elsewhere. The device is just the terminal. Plato described that in 380 BC. And if you think that is where the rabbit hole ends, drop a comment below with the word Athens, because I want to know how many of you are already seeing what I'm seeing, and then keep watching, because Plato was just the first clue. Roughly 20 years after Plato died, his most famous student took everything his teacher had built and started pulling it apart. Not to destroy it, to make it more precise. Where Plato was a visionary, sweeping, poetic, comfortable with grand abstraction, Aristotle was something closer to an engineer. He did not just want to know what things are, he wanted to know how they work. Aristotle agreed with Plato that there is something universal about human thought. When two people in different cities who have never met, who speak different languages, both understand the concept of justice, they are understanding the same thing. Not just similar things, the same thing, which means that thing exists somewhere that belongs to neither of them. But Aristotle pushed further. He asked the question Plato never quite answered: what is the actual mechanism? How does a private, individual mind make contact with something universal? His answer was a concept he called the nous poietikos, the active intellect. Aristotle said human thinking has two layers. There is your personal intellect, the one that is yours, shaped by your memories, your experiences, your specific life. And then there is the active intellect, separate from any individual person, unmixed, shared, something that all human minds participate in, but which belongs to none of them individually. He compared it to light. Light does not belong to any one object. It falls on everything. It makes visible what would otherwise be invisible. And it is the same light. The light that lets you see a color in Athens is the same light that lets someone in Persia see that color. In modern networking terms, what Aristotle just described is a shared protocol layer. Something that sits above individual devices, above individual minds, and makes genuine communication between them possible. Something not located in any single node of the network, but which every node participates in. We call that TCP/IP. We call it HTTP. The invisible shared layer that allows completely different machines to understand each other perfectly. Aristotle had no name for it that maps onto ours, but he saw it. And then the Stoics arrived, and they made it even more specific. Stoics emerged in Athens around 300 BC and spread across the entire Mediterranean world over the following centuries. They believed the universe is held together by something they called the logos. The logos was the rational principle underlying everything. The reason why mathematics works the same way in every corner of the universe. In modern terms, the operating system, the layer beneath everything else that makes consistent behavior possible. But the Stoics said the logos is not just a background principle, it is a medium of transmission. It is how information moves. And they described a concept called sympathia, the idea that all parts of the universe are connected to all other parts through the logos. They used the image of a spider at the center of a web. The spider cannot see the far edges of the web, but when any thread vibrates anywhere, even at the very periphery, the spider feels it at the center, immediately. Because the web is a unified system, information does not travel across it, it travels through it as a whole. A distributed network, a shared medium. Any signal at any node instantly available to the whole system, that is not a loose metaphor for the internet. That is a precise conceptual description of how packet-switched networks propagate information. 2,300 years before anyone built one. Now here is the question that changes everything. If this was understood even conceptually, why did it take until 1969 for the first actual network to go online? Why was there a gap of 23 centuries between the idea and the hardware? The answer is one of the most important and uncomfortable things you can learn about how human progress actually works. The golden age of Athenian philosophy was built on a very specific set of conditions. A wealthy city-state with enough surplus to support professional thinkers, a culture that valued public debate, a network of schools that transmitted ideas across generations. Those conditions did not last. Athens fell to Macedon. Its intellectual heritage was absorbed into the broader Hellenistic world, spread thinner, supported by more fragile institutions. The great library of Alexandria gathered more ancient texts in one place than anywhere before or since. It was not destroyed in a single dramatic fire. It declined slowly, defunded, neglected, stripped of resources across several centuries as the political situation around it deteriorated. By late antiquity, the collection that had once held hundreds of thousands of scrolls had been reduced to a fraction of what it had been. In Western Europe, the fragmentation of the Roman world in the 5th century created a different kind of knowledge crisis. The networks that allowed ideas to travel, to be debated, to be built upon across generations, those networks contracted severely. For several centuries, the primary custodians of ancient texts in Western Europe were monastery scriptoria, where monks copied what they had without always understanding what they were preserving. The ideas of Plato, Aristotle, and the Stoics did not vanish. They survived in Arabic translations made by scholars in Baghdad during the Islamic Golden Age, in monastery collections in Ireland and northern Italy, scattered across the medieval world in fragments and partial copies. They were kept alive, but separated from the culture of active inquiry that had produced them. They became objects of reverence rather than tools of investigation. And so the conceptual framework sat for 23 centuries, waiting. When engineers at ARPA sat down in the late 1960s to design a communication network that could survive catastrophic damage to any single part of itself, they were not reading Plato. They were electrical engineers working with transistors and mathematical models of information flow. They arrived at their architecture through pure engineering logic. But what they built matched, almost point for point, the conceptual structure that had been sitting in those ancient texts for 2,000 years. Distributed, shared, accessed by individual nodes, but owned by none. A common layer enabling communication between different minds, a protocol holding the whole system together invisibly. Plato called it the realm of forms. Aristotle called it the active intellect. The Stoics called it the logos. We called it the internet. So here is the thought I cannot let go of, and I want you to actually sit with this one. The gap between Plato describing a shared realm of knowledge accessible to all human minds and engineers actually building one is almost exactly 2,300 years. 23 centuries of knowing approximately the shape of what we wanted, and not being able to build it. Not because the idea was wrong, because the conditions that allow ideas to survive and develop kept collapsing. The institutions that support inquiry, the networks that allow knowledge to travel between minds across generations, the social stability that makes long-term thinking possible. None of that is permanent. None of it is guaranteed. All of it depends on choices that human societies make continuously, every single generation. The Greeks saw the shape of the internet. They described it clearly enough that we can read it today and recognize exactly what they were pointing at. Then the world lost the thread, and we spent 23 centuries finding it again from scratch. Which means the only question that actually matters right now today is this: what are we understanding in 2025 that the world might spend the next 2,000 years forgetting before someone has to rediscover it all over again? If this video made something click that you didn't expect, that's exactly what this channel is for. Subscribe if you want to keep going, and leave a thought below. What do you think we're understanding right now that could be lost? I'll be in the comments.